And we are live now. Had a technical issue here. Welcome everyone to The Magician and the Witch, a kind of podcast. My name is Easy. I'm joined here with Becky. And
hello.
We're going to continue with the conversation that started last week in the first episode about Wicca. And do you have anything to add to last week, Becky?
No, I don't think I do. I think what we talked about was, I think I've explained myself pretty well. Did you have any questions you wish to go over at all?
I had a lot of questions to make, but we'll get around them at one point because everything is so interconnected that we're gonna recap. No, we're not recap. We're gonna go back to a point that we were talking towards the end, which was the Sabbats. And to explain us, what are they? What do they represent? Do they have a specific purpose individually, or like religious holidays, like for example, Catholic? They have the Catholic have specific days to different. Missing the word. Yeah, specific dates. And about that in relation to the Sabbats.
So Sabbaths, my understanding of them, obviously, I do believe they stem from the pagan part, and it was pretty much the cycle of the year. So obviously, growth of the crops, of the field, of the harvest, and then the death of that. And then paganism and Wicca, to my understanding, that I've taken on board, is the life of the earth itself, the life of the goddess who earth we live on. So at Yuletide is a celebration that winter has come to an end, that the cold period is ending and the earth is rejuvenating. And then we get to Ostara, or Easter, as some of the Christians call it as well, which is the start of life and new beginnings. And then obviously we get through to some of the other ones. I can never pronounce it. I think it's Lunasa, which is the harvest. So that's where you start the crops that have grown and have become their full potential that the mother has granted us. You start to harvest those, and then we get to Samhain, which is one of my favourite festivals or Sabbats, where the harvest has come to an end. Everything is starting to die, but it also signifies spirits leaving this world and entering the next. One of the reasons why I say it's my favorite, it does coincide with Halloween, but it is my favorite because of how much understanding I now have of that festival. So a lot of people obviously associate Samhain and Halloween with the devil, and obviously in America it's quite a big thing where people dress up in different costumes, and obviously in modern times as well, a lot of people go out, they get drunk, they eat all these sweets, but it is a sign where the veil between the two worlds, between the physical world and the spiritual world, is thin, and spirits can pass over and they can leave this world, whereas some can come back if they need to speak to someone or tell something. It's a way where it comes through, and it comes into Christianity as well, because obviously November the 1st is All Saints' Day, which is a Christian holiday. But yeah, that's just, when my friend died, I feel like I took her spirit with me, and the first time, and this wasn't I hadn't really looked into Halloween at this point, but the first time I felt like I was like she was at peace and she wasn't with me was the day after Halloween, and I thought that was really strange. And it wasn't until I started looking more into Wicca and looking more into spirituality that I actually realized that's possibly a reason, whether it was just subconsciously I knew that or whether it is true. But that's one of the reasons why that holiday kind of means a lot to me, because that was when I feel like she had killed herself, and that was when she'd finally done what she needed to and she'd moved on. And yeah, that's why I feel that holiday is most important. I do various rituals, so I will light a candle, I will speak through at the altar, but I won't do anything major. It's more of every candle that I own in my house gets lit from about 6 o'clock in the evening till about midnight, after midnight, and then they either extinguish themselves or I blow them out, and that is my little ritual on that day, if I'm not going out as well, because modern capitalism or whatever it is. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite holidays, because that's when I feel like relief and happiness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to an extent, it helps you coping with what happened to your friend, and also pays you would say pay homage to the friendship, what it meant and what it means, that relationship to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that those holidays that they are, how do you say, properly represented in their history through time with Wicca, or did they get diluted through time? Because as you spoke, like, you have the 31st of October, which is Halloween,
mm-hmm.
and you feel like many witches take it all the Sabbaths, but this one included more lightly than they should.
I do believe, due to modern culture and just how it is, I do believe that a lot of them have been diluted. So I call back to something that we spoke about last week, Christianity. They take Yule, they turn it into Christmas. They take Ostara, they turn it into Easter. They take other little holidays and they make it their own. So I struggle sometimes. Like, sometimes I can be going about doing my own thing, and then it'll like hit me like, oh shit, there's a Sabbath coming up, and I don't have a clue of what I need to. I'm not even prepared. So sometimes I will miss them completely, and I'll feel really bad. But I believe it's because, again, I don't know much about them. I do try to learn about them. Every time they're coming up, I find it almost not like research or homework, but like, I need to go learn this, read about it, then I can have a little ritual, light my candle, do what I need to on that day, give blessings to people that I believe want it, say it to them. I do believe as well, like, Halloween, again, because of modern culture, overtakes Samhain, and it does become a little bit of a diluted holiday. It's lost what it means. Just a little bit like Christmas. Obviously, if you think Christmas from Christianity aspect was there as a Jesus came to this world and was a gift from God to us, but now it's become much more about how much gifts can we give to people, and it's not about the holiday. It's more about the monetary value.
Yeah,
and I think that dilutes it.
Santa took over.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
He took over.
And as a kid, I remember thinking, I don't give a shit about Jesus. I don't care that he was born this day. Why do I have to get up early on Christmas Day to go to church to learn about or celebrate a guy that was born. And I feel like that is due to modern day. It's not given to children, and it's just like Wicca. A long time ago in pagans' holidays, every child will have known, but because there's toys and money is there as the main thing, I think that just dilutes the holiday and its meaning these days. So yeah, I think the same has happened for Samhain as well as Halloween. It's just been, here's a load of costumes, here you're going to go out and party, here you're going to go out and get sweets from people's houses. There is no actual celebration of people that we've lost and that thinning of the veil. There is no real discussion. I didn't know about that until I did my own research and learning and went away myself, and I was like, oh, right, that's what that means. So yeah, I do believe it has lost a lot of its touch and meaning in recent years.
It's like it's going... It feels like it goes in the direction of a trendy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like a long time ago. Like when you had some brand of clothes or some new thing that was coming out, like everyone flocked into it. And then just the hardcore ones stuck to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives the feeling, at least from the little that I watch and read about Wicca, that there's a lot of... It feels that there's a lot of theory into it and a lot of esoteric talk, and then practically speaking, I don't want to generalize, of course, but it feels like a lot of people is just lighting candles and doing some things instead of taking it. It feels like light Wicca instead of Wicca.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say that I'm very guilty of that. But we were discussing before the stream, not having time and due to work, and I believe, like I said, part of me wants to do more, but I struggle to have the time to do it, really. And I wish I did. And that's why another reason why I go away, read things, and come back to that Sabbath, or even afterwards, I'll go, right, well, I've completely forgotten. Let me go back and read it. And we talk about Yuletide as well, and the meaning that's lost as well. Obviously, at Christmas, we have the Christmas tree, which is actually a pagan thing where they would, and it was introduced in the Victorian times as a major thing, but we would bring in a tree from the outside, and one of the theories back then was it actually invited spirits into your home, so you gave them somewhere warm to be, which is another reason why you have one of the fairies at the tree, where you have the lights, where you have the tinsel. It was to represent inviting the fae and other magic creatures and the spirits into our home to keep them warm and safe during the harsher climates. And then in the spring, the tree would go back outside, and it wouldn't be one that you chop down. It would be a tree that you plant or you had outside, and you might not just have one, you might have a few, and you'd bring them in, you'd decorate them, and then you'd send them back out. And it's every time at Christmas when you go past churches and they've got these massive grand bloody Christmas trees, and you're kind of like, you talk about paganism is bad, but yet you've got a Christmas tree in your fucking church. That's fine, we'll bypass that, eh? But yeah, I think a lot of the meaning is lost, and in the recent years, especially the last 6 years since I've been living on my own, it's one of those things of, it's why I bring a Christmas tree into the house, and it's not because of tradition, because everybody does it. I now have a new understanding and a new belief to the tree and what it stands for, and that's why I prefer to do it. And it's not because of modern Christians or modernization. It is due to what I want, due to Wicca now. That's why I bring one in.
Michael is saying on chat, Samhain is probably the most well-known. And he also says, I don't know if they do that in England, and I don't think you really do here in Scotland anymore. But when I was a kid, before it was super Americanized, we used to use turnips instead of pumpkins for Halloween.
Yeah. I remember, I don't remember doing it because it was something that my mum and dad really wanted to avoid. But I do remember going round to one of my friends whose parents was a little bit more eccentric. There was turnips with like a couple of candles in it, and I used to be like, what the hell is that? And then again, I mean, I'm talking when I was like 8, 9 years old. And then it was probably when I was about 15, 16 years old where I'd started to know a bit more about Wicca, that I saw the pumpkins, and it's because that is the predominant root vegetable that they would grow at that time of year, which is obviously they'd hollow it out after the harvest, and they've eaten the innards and they would use it to signal for the spirits. I mean, I'm not 100% up on my pumpkin carving, and the main reasons I don't really do it because, again, it's another thing, I don't have time, and I feel like it's a bit of a waste of a vegetable or something because I wouldn't use it, so I just don't like to waste things in my house, so I don't really go into it that much. But I know there is a meaning, especially for there is a reason why people do it, and I think again it's to symbolise something to do with spirits and the fae, like a coming into the house kind of thing. But I think these days it's more for we have sweets, come and get them. And yeah, as a kid, I don't remember going round. It wasn't until again I was like 11, 12 years old where it started. Americanism started to creep into the UK, and these kind of became the norm, obviously because the UK, I wouldn't say it's like super Christian or Catholic society, especially not these days, but back then it was kind of, Halloween was seen as very frowned upon and seen as like some kind of satanic devil kind of worship, and my mum and dad fought a long time for me not to do it, and it wasn't until I started reading books and reading things and questioning, especially the Bible, and that's where my mum and dad were like, you know what? Yes, she's a lost cause. She can do what she wants now. So yeah, I remember. So like Michael says, I remember it starting, but I never did it as a kid. But yeah, obviously you like see it in TV, don't you? Like E.T. comes to mind, where they dress up on the night and they're going around in the Halloween parties, and that was one of the first times I was like, I've never done that. But again, I think that's an example of modern culture taking a holiday, putting it in film, and then suddenly everyone's doing it. I think that's an example of that there.
Yeah, we never had Halloween here. It's a new thing. Like,
yeah, you and Francesca said it, that you don't do Halloween.
What? And it's not even, it's a small fringe of like traditional in a small fringe. No, now it's like everywhere, but no tradition whatsoever on it. So it's not something that I find it amusing or funny or nice to do. It's just like, I don't know, carnival or something.
Mm-hmm.
John, using the Red Silks profile, my mom used to do it too, along with Dukin.
I have no idea what that is.
Me neither. They're a pain in the ass to carve, says Michael. We had to do the trick for trick or treat, sing a wee song or something to get sweets. Yeah, now it's just trick or treat.
That sounds like Christmas.
Yeah, singing the carols.
Oh, bobbing for apples. Okay, yeah, I've never done that. My American friend has just sent me a message going, stop blaming it on Americans. It's Western culture, not American culture. So that was me being told there that it's stop blaming everything on the Americans. But in my eyes and my experience, it is. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad at all. I'm just saying that's where it predominantly comes from.
Yeah, that's a whole story there.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about Americans.
No. Okay, now we're going into the meat. That's the reason why we postpone a little bit the talk, because I think now we have some time to talk about the Book of Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Which it comes up everywhere. Like every witch has to have a Book of Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And even forgot what I wrote here. What is the Book of Shadows? What is it used for? Does it have a specific use, or is something more general in context of Wicca?
So originally, so it's a bit iffy where it starts. And obviously there's the guy, is he called Gerald Gardner or something like that? He's the one that wrote the Book of Shadows. And he's apparently said to have coined the term Book of Shadows, or even look at the occult book or something like that. But it is definitely something taken on by Wicca. Now, I said last week, I'm not part of a coven, so I don't have the coven's Book of Shadows. But the idea behind it is that it was like a religious text, a little bit like the Bible. And it contained various rituals and spells that a coven could partake in and how to perform certain duties. And it would also have little tips and things of what you could do for your own personal kind of rituals that you would want to do. And each coven was said to have one. But since modernization, and not a lot of people are part of covens, and it's a little harder to have like covens as they typically were back then. I know from my own study that the general practice is that one coven would have a Book of Shadows, and then each witch would have their own personal Book of Shadows. And in that, they will have copied down certain scriptures or certain religious rituals that they have taken out of the coven's Book of Shadows, and then they've got their own like little bits of like, right, well, we do this, but I want to add this to it, and it has different parts in it. And it is also said that each witch as well, because it's their person. I remember somewhere reading about it being a cookbook for the witch or something like that. But basically, each witch has her own spell book where she writes down things that's important to her. And when she dies, it's supposed to be burnt with her or go with her, because whilst you do want to pass down knowledge through certain things, it shouldn't just be open for anyone to pick up and take, and that's why it should go with the witch. That's her magic, her energy, her life is imbued into that book, and it should go with her. There is also, I know, a Book of Mirrors, which is supposed to be where you put your thoughts and ideas down. I don't have one of those. My Book of Shadows, which is here actually, it's kind of all tatty and falling apart. I messed up with my book because I just got a book that I thought was cool. I started writing stuff in it, but the Book of Shadows really needs to be organized, and you can add things to it. So when this book, which eventually it will do, it will start getting full. I have no way of adding things to it, so that is another thing of I should have looked at the Ringbinder books, because then I could have added things to it. I could have organized bits and gone, well, actually, I don't feel like this fits here. I feel like this ritual would fit somewhere else in the book. And that is really my take on the Book of Shadows. It is something that will grow with me, and I'm supposed to do shadow work along with my Book of Shadows, but I really don't like shadow work. It's something that I personally find quite intimidating. I don't want to do it, but I know I should do it, and I have to do it. It's just I don't feel like I'm ready to do any shadow work alongside my shadow book at the moment.
What is shadow work exactly?
So it's looking into yourself and finding. So, like, you have automatic responses to things that happen all the time, and it's breaking that down and finding out why. It's asking yourself, well, why has this happened? Why do I have this insecurity? How can I build on this? And starting shadow work, again, it's just so daunting because I have nearly 30 years of stuff. I should have started it 5 years ago when I really got to grips with shadow work. But it's not taking apart, but looking at yourself and going, right, well, I have this thing, this problem, this insecurity. How do I stop it impacting in a negative way? Because how can you truly become yourself spiritually if you're not accepting who you are, like the shadow you? It's not a bad thing having this shadow, but everyone's got one. But you just need to accept that it's part of you and learn to live with it and not let it control you. So yeah, you're supposed to sit down, and I think I wrote something in here a while ago. Just check. It's the critical introspection. I wrote that probably like 4 years ago. And it's, yeah, you need to take one thing at a time and look at it. And it's a lifelong thing, because something that I can accept myself today, in 10, 15 years' time, something may happen to affect that. And then I'll have to come back to it and look at it, regrow with it, and move forward with it. And yeah, that's what shadow work to me is looking inwards, looking at who I am, why I am, and learning to not let that control me. And I mean, we've talked that I have anxiety. I mean, you've helped me with some anxiety issues before, and it all comes back. A lot of my problems come back from when my friend died, and I suddenly was like, no, I need to be better. I need my friends are all falling around me. I don't have time to grieve. And I just got all those like feelings and I just shoved them down, and I wanted nothing to do with them. And 5, 6 years later, I'm still here, still struggling to cope with, why did she go? I heard her arguing with the man on the end of the phone who I know was the reason why she did it, but why? And I still struggle with that. And it affects me still to this day, which I do need to reflect on it. I do need to do that shadow work. But again, it's one of those things of I don't want to know and I just don't want to go there. So yeah. I'm sorry if I suddenly become emotional, because it shakes me to my core that another human being can be so twisted to affect someone like that and not care. And then for her to find that the only way out and the only way that someone will listen is to take her own life. Yeah. I struggle to understand that sometimes.
Yeah. It's hard to understand it. It's what my uncle did the same. So I know the reason why he did it, but still it doesn't make a connection, at least in my, like, how things work and how things should be done or not done. Yeah, it's that's a whole thing, another thing to delve into. Okay, the red silks, I'll assume it's John. When you say you have to do it, what is the driver for you to do it? I'll assume it's the shadow work.
To know more about me. So the drive to do it would be to stop letting it hinder me, pulling me back. I suffer a lot at the moment with imposter syndrome in my job. And it would stop those feelings and negativity creeping in when I know I can do my job. I'm perfectly capable. I wouldn't still be there 10 years later if I couldn't do my job. But you always get those niggling feelings, and everyone gets them. And it's not just Wicca that shadow work is related to. It's all forms of like spirituality. So I think it's in like Buddhism as well, that you have to ask yourself these questions, and you develop them from there again, so you can become more spiritually aware. The drive is to just I see who I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, this bubbly, carefree girl who'd not really seen much of the world. I kind of want to go back to her, and to be that person, I need to make sure I don't get hurt again, but I also need to make sure that I'm prepared to deal with it, if that makes sense as well. Like, it's all about growth, and that's the drive. To not be a former shadow of myself.
That feels... I don't know if you like psychology or not. I like it. especially the weird ones. And that feels like the constructivism from Piaget, or adding something to make it better, or deconstruct everything and assemble it together to make it work. In this case, it would be to better yourself, to better your life and how you would approach things. And I don't know. It's one of those things, like when you approach life, like, for example, John asks, like, you have to do it. If it's an obligation, it tends to get postponed most of the times, because I have to do it. And you start doing it, and you just do a little bit. And then you enter in the procrastination mode, and you just delay it. Probably it's just when you get to a point where you feel it and you do it, instead of thinking about it, because there's going to be one day, I think, that you will do it, in the sense like, yeah, it's time to face the bull. Like, and you do it. Probably with time. It's the only idea that I have with it.
Yeah, I know that I will eventually get round to it. But when I say get round to it, it means, like you said, it's one day there'll be a day where I go, yeah, I want to start. I'm going to sit. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to look at my subconscious. I'm going to look at inwards. I'm going to start to do this. And I've said that it's intimidating, and I've read a lot of like writings and stuff about shadow work, and a lot of people say, yes, starting is intimidating, but doing it and moving through it is very rewarding. And I know that I will get that. I just can't. Again, if that makes sense. Like, I find it too intimidating, and I don't think I'm ready yet to move into that stage of my life spiritually.
Talking about the Book of Shadows, going a little bit more to the lighter side. I was also looking through my notes for a while, because there was a thing called the Books of Illumination in the Dark Ages in Europe. And I think that's where, I might be mistaken, not my beach here, but I think during the Dark Ages in Europe, there was a thing called Books of Illumination, which I think it's origin, in quotes, to the Book of Shadows, which is, it has a really nice word to it. Like, the Book of Shadows is a grimoire.
Yeah.
And I'm going to plug my favorite writer here, which is Alan Moore from Watchmen and V for Vendetta and blah, 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 all of those things. And he always associates grimoire with grammar. Like the origin of the word being grammar, and you have to write all of those things. Do you have anything specific that you write in your Book of Shadows? Now, rephrase it better. There are people who just write recipes and spells, other ones how to do something, for example, how to make candles or incense, or just general herbology stuff, herbalism, like name of plants by alphabetic order and all of those things. Do you have a specific thing? And you're smiling, probably the herbalism thing.
So not really. If you were to look through the book that I have, like I said, it's all over the place, because I go through phases where I'm like, yeah, I really want to do this. I really want to look at this. So a lot of my spells when I first started were about healing, and about accepting. So I was doing a lot of stuff like that, and that's where a lot of my rune work comes from, where I started going around the house. If you come to my house there's runes everywhere. So as we're in the process of moving, I'm having to go through the house and cleanse them and get rid of the runes because I feel like the next owner of the house may not want them there. So yeah, I'm going through just getting rid of them. And like then my next part goes on to crystals, and I have quite a lot of crystals. But they're all the little tiny ones because I like to hide them in certain places, or I like to keep them in my pocket, or I like to be able to easily charge them and clean them and take them with me. So there's after the like spells and incantation section that I have in my book, there's a bit about crystals and which each crystal like defines. So I currently have quite a lot of amethyst around the house because I know personally I don't like dealing with change. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, humans just don't like change. No, I really, which is another reason why I really don't want to change jobs, because I really don't do very well. So I have a lot of amethyst to help me cope with that. And every full moon, I will take them out and I will clean them, and I will bathe them in the moonlight and basically help recharge them. I also have rose quartz as well. There's quite a lot because, again, I suffer with anger. And again, I think that comes from my friend and all that pent-up energy and emotion that I have. So again, I have like little rose quartz things that I put in my pocket, and I just keep them and I just move around the house with them. So that there's a section. So it's mainly like rituals and crystal work in my book that I have, and I flick between the two so they keep going back and forth. Or like, I've never made candles. It's not something that I've looked into or had the need or drive to want to do. With regards to herbalism, one of the main things when I moved out of my mum and dad's house was I wanted a garden so I could do these things. And then I'd get like little herbs and stuff like that, and they'd always die. And I was always like, why do they keep dying? And a lot of times when you keep them in the house, it is, and I do believe back when I first moved into this house, and I again recall back to last week where I was casting those curses, a lot of plants will die because of the negative energies and things that are around you. So I do believe I killed those. No, I mean, I watered them like every other day. I wasn't overwatering them, I wasn't underwatering them. I probably didn't give them enough care, maybe not enough sunlight or something like that. But yeah, they definitely died. So there is a small bit about herbalism, but because I mean, the plants in my garden now are fine. Like, I seem to have cracked that. But yeah, with regards to herbs, so like my own sage, rosemary, thyme, mint, I struggle to keep fresh herbs alive for my own work, so I end up going to like either like a shop and just buying some more, or like an actual like witchcraft crystal kind of Tibetan place, and taking like herb cuttings from there and using them in my ritual work. I know, talking about herbs, there's a section at the beginning where in my shadow work where I talk about saging, and my boyfriend has asthma and he's really bad with incense and stuff. And I hadn't told him that I was going to sage the house, but even though it's a new build, another reason why I wanted a new build was because I didn't want any bad spirits or dead people in my house. And I was just going around saging the house, and he came back from work and he just couldn't breathe. He had to go and stay at his mum's for a day because I just saged the entire house, and it just stunk of like a roast pork dinner, basically, with sage floating around the house. And being a vegetarian, he wasn't very happy about that. So I have also mentioned that when we move out, I will be saging the house before we leave and saging the new house. He was not very impressed. So it's one of those things. Yeah. Yeah, go and do something womanly. So yeah.
John is asking if removing the runes have consequences and you have to take extra care.
Because I haven't done it yet, because I haven't looked into it, but I don't think there is. I think as long as you cleanse everywhere properly, and then like erase them, so painting basically to get rid of the rune. That's one of the, again, it's something that I'm going to look into. I will be doing my work. I just know that I can't really leave them because each rune that's inscribed is given like my energy, and it won't resonate with the next person, so there's no point leaving them. Again, if they're quite spiritual, there's a chance they may not be, but they may take, not offense, but they may get annoyed because then they'll have to do their own cleansing, preparing. So I do think to get rid of them, it's kind of like just cleaning the area of like any spirits, of saging again, and then lighting the candle and then wiping over it. But again, that's some work that I need to put in myself before I do, which is another reason why I've not done it yet. I've put it off.
We talked last week about elements, and that you sense them towards you, like they are directed to you. Some of them more than others. But I want to go into, instead of elements, elementals. Have you ever experienced the power of the elementals? Have you ever tried to connect with them?
I've tried to connect with water elementals. So I spoke last week that I feel like I have quite a high affinity to fire and water elementals. And I know that I'm probably not, because again, I'm still, use the term baby Wicca. I'm still new to this. I do believe that a fire elemental is probably not the best to reach out to first. So I have tried with water. And in fact, the first place that I actually tried it was in Albufeira in Portugal. I remember being on the beach. It was just after my friend had died. And we'd gone on like a girls' holiday. She was supposed to go with us. And I just felt really lost. And I remember it being like 9-10 o'clock at night, and everyone was sat at the beach bar up on like the promenade thing. And I was down at the beach myself. And I remember being in like water and just kind of like calling out and writing like a little rune in the sand, because this is when I first started doing it. So again, I wasn't 100% about it. And I tried, but I got nothing. And I have since done it again, where if we go out, like my boyfriend's a big walker, if we go out, I generally try to go walking near rivers. I live next to a river. And I have tried, but I've had nothing. I've had no success at all.
We're talking, I asked the question about the elementals. What are the elementals? For people who's listening to know what it is.
So I suppose it goes back to like D&D. So they're a spirit that, this is again my understanding, but again, because I've not reached out, and maybe this is the reason why they've not reached out to me, is my understanding is that it is a spirit that is imbued with that energy. So obviously, I feel like you see it all the time in nature. So tsunami and whirlpools. Part of me feels like water elementals are linked to that. It's a form of energy that is so vast and powerful. And yeah, it's caused by shifting in of the earth. But then, if we're thinking that the earth belongs to the goddess and she is one with the earth, I feel like it comes from that. You think of tornadoes and hurricanes, earthquakes, and even volcanic eruptions. Yeah, that's all part of the earth. But my belief is that there is some kind of elemental magic that resides in there to trigger it. Now, I'm a scientist as well as a Wiccan, and I know that there's a lot of science behind it, of why there's earthquakes, why there's tsunamis, but I just think part of me, maybe it's that little naive little girl inside of me that just believes that magic kind of is imbued a little bit into it, and that's just my understanding of the elementals. And again, I may be completely wrong, and that's why they've not come to me, because they're gone, you've got this, the complete wrong girl, you need to go back and reevaluate everything. But yeah, that's my understanding of what they are.
I find it interesting with the elementals, at least from what I read. And you read a lot about people talking about the deities, gods and goddesses, and all of that. I'll call it class in quotes. But then you have the elementals, which are more powerful than the deities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in D&D, you have the elementals. Like you play against one, and you're like, oh, yeah, not a good thing. And they are more powerful than the deities. Why wouldn't a Wiccan try to reach more to the deity, to the elementals instead of deities? Is it because of the power that they have, which you can't absorb, like control, or how do you say what's the word? I'm missing the word. Let's go with control. Let's go with that.
I think it's because they're very primordial. So I know a long time ago, the pagans, believed that the elementals, or at least the elements, were the building blocks of the universe. And in some kind of way, they are a little bit true. You can't really have life without water and fire and land to live on and air breathe. And I think it's because a god can go one way or the other. A deity can be like, yeah, I hate you, I'm going to kill you. Or they could be like, yeah, no, I like you. I've never really looked into this of why. It's almost like they're the ancients and you kind of just respect that they're there and you leave them alone. But I think it's just because they are so large in who they are. Like, if you think of fire, it's a force of nature of, if it's coming for you, you can't stop it. You can subdue it, you can use water to extinguish it, but if it's really going to go for you, it's going to get you. Water is so heavy and dense, if that falls on you, again, there's no way you can stop that. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because with a deity or a god or a goddess, you can kind of see the human part of, not human, but like you can connect with them, whereas an element, nah.
And also they have a similar image to humans. Probably that connection with it. Yeah, the primordial side from elementals, they won't comprehend as we comprehend things. They will have some different idea. And the thing that you try to connect with water, like from what I've researched, the one that you should go first always, it's Earth. Because that's the least dangerous.
Yeah, and it kind of is grounded to it. But I look at, sorry to cut you off, but I look at Earth and air, and this is really rude, but I have just no interest in them. There is something about water and fire that just pulls me and draws me in. And if an earth elemental was to pop up and be like, hello, I'd be like, yeah, cool, see you later. And I'd just keep walking. Like, I just have no interest in them. And I feel I should, but I just don't. And that, again, is work that I need to work on myself. But I feel like it's something that I want. And I just keep going for it. And traditional rituals or whatever, I just kind of ignore. I'm like, nah, I'm going to do it my way. And I'm very stubborn like that. And yeah, I have heard that. I've read that it is like Earth is easier. It's not stubborn, like it's very black and white. It's very, here I am kind of thing. And it's like something to ground and root yourself. And I know that there's when I was feeling a little bit lost in myself last year, one of the best ways to kind of like recenter yourself and your energies is to kind of take your shoes off and walk out into earth or grassland or anything like that and just feel the earth beneath your feet and feel the energies. And I do that sometimes. But do I want to connect with an earth elemental? no, I have no interest, and I would say that's a fault on my behalf. I'm so stubborn like that. I don't want to. I just want that water and fire, which again is another reason why I didn't go for fire, because of how strong it is. And I know that if it happened, I'd be like, oh fuck, now what do I do? And again, it's growth that I've got to do with myself as a witch, as a Wiccan, as a person.
Wouldn't you need, for example, you try to invocate the water elemental? Don't you think to do that you would need formal ritual, in a sense, set things up in a proper manner instead of just going at it?
Probably, which is again another reason why I probably haven't felt one. But again, I'm just so... I don't know, it's growth in myself that I probably need to look at, but when I called out to Hecate or Hecate, however you want to say her name, and I instantly felt that connection, I just feel like I could do that again with everything around me. I was like, right, well, if that works, this is going to work. And yeah, I should probably look at that. And if people are going to try it, I would definitely recommend it. But again, it's like ingrained in me of just they'll see your perseverance. They're not blind. But yeah, and I should probably look into that ritual part, but I have yet to do it. It's more I kind of announce that I'm there, I sit down, I draw the rune to me of like how I would see water, and I place myself in the water expecting to feel something, and yeah, I'm yet to feel it.
I have we're almost at 1 hour. I have one last question, which is a setup for next week. Each witch has a different way of casting spells, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are part of a coven, then I'll assume it has rules. And you also have the high priestess or the high priest and so on, and the 13 number of elements in some of them, the more traditional ones. What could be the differences? Because I feel it all goes to the same structure. I'm a guy with patterns and all rules and things, and it feels like there's a solid base on that, and then you have some tweaks, you could say that.
Mm-hmm. Because I've never done any spell or ritual work with a coven, I have never witnessed it. But obviously, again, you see in TV and film and books, like there would be the book, the priestess, the priest, that would read it in whatever language they've deemed to put it in, be it Latin or even some other like archaic language, or even just their native language. And then normally it's like enclosed with people chanting or holding hands, because obviously the holding of the hand is to help the energies and amplify energy. My way of doing it, so I don't have a complete tool set of Wicca stuff yet. I did have a crystal wand, but it broke. And someone a long time ago, when I first started out being a Wiccan, they said that crystals and your tools will call to you. They will say, yeah, you need me and I will help you, because that tool work, those tools are for your work and you're going to use them for the rest of your life. And when I first picked up the wand, so it was like a wooden wand with like it had a couple of amethysts and like a turquoise gem in it. And I'd kind of, again, this goes back to my Book of Shadows, where I'd done the research on I want crystals, but I'd not actually listened to the crystals. I'd just bought one offline, and it ended up breaking. So I have currently incomplete Wiccan ritual tool set, but it's because I go into these shops and I listen, and if I feel like I'm drawn to something, I generally take that. Most of my crystals I've gone and felt for them and picked them up and felt the energies like vibrate within me. So currently, the way that I cast spells is we talked about the pentagram last week, and I have like little candles that I light around where I've inscribed the little elements, and then I have like a center candle, and then I will speak whatever it is that I want to do, and then I'll kind of just like meditate, and then it's hard to explain, but I kind of it's like I feel like I can force my consciousness to just outwards, and all I'm saying in my head is the name of the goddess that I'm Hecate. I'm trying to call out to her, and then when I feel like she's listening or I've called enough, I will again cast the spell or the incantation or whatever I want, and then I will sit there and just meditate on the flame until I feel calm, and then I will extinguish all the flames all at once, and then I'll just get up and walk away and don't even touch it, just leave it. And that's how I do my spells.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on that next week, because we're on the hour mark, and one thing which you talked, which is the witch tools, which I found really nice to read, because first of all, there's a lot of them, different types. They can be of different types inside of a type. It was interesting, and then the casting spells. That's a whole other subject. I don't know if John is on there, because if he is, are you there, John? See if we could raid someone. No, I don't think he's there. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, he's there. Could we raid Anthony Wheeler? Could you see if he's one of our followers? He's an amazing artist, Anthony Wheeler. And it would be nice for Michael and Jade to see him. And let's see if John finds it. Yeah, next week, Witches 2, casting spells, and I don't know what more. I have a lot of reading to do, as always. The books are big. That's a whole other subject. Do you have his user? Yeah, he's one of the latest follows that we had, Anthony Wheeler. Anthony Wheeler Art. And let's see if we could trade him. For silence. Oh, he's on. Nice. Well, thank you who watched us. Next week we'll continue. Oh, there it goes. Yeah. Talking about Wicca. Thank you very much. I'm Easy. She's Becky.
I'm Becky. Bye-bye.
Bye.